Hey KP, it's Rosalee, your favorite herb student. Just kidding. I studied with you, KP, for years, both in class and through a mentorship. And I learned so many things from you that I think about every day. In fact, I can still hear your voice in my head at times. And one thing that really stuck with me over the years is how incredibly important dosage is. I think that's something that can be overly, just like looked over or overly simplified. And I think that learning that from you and really dialing that in, and how there's no one dosage for anybody, but learning all of that, I think is what made me get such great results when working with people and plants, because that can be a huge missing factor for folks. So wondering if you would speak to that, the importance of dosage, and perhaps maybe why there's some confusion about dosage between different traditional methods and different modalities. Thanks, KP.
Yeah, hi, Rosalee. Well, as soon as I saw Rosalee's face in the video question, I knew the question was going to be about dose. I seem to be the dose guy in the herb world now for whatever reason. I'm involved to about equal degree in Ayurvedic Chinese medicine and Western herbalism. And all those big three systems have different kinds of approaches to dose, with, of course, Chinese medicine typically the doses being the highest, and Ayurveda following closely thereafter, and then Western herbs generally being minuscule by comparison. So if we look at the kinds of doses that have been used in the past in Western herbalism, we have to go back, a century or more probably to see when it was stable and well functioning. And then we look at TCM and Ayurveda kinds of doses. We see that generally people were using doses much, much higher than, for whatever reason, they kind of wound down to today. So when herbal medicine got rejuvenated in North America starting around about 1970, and I was part of that, initial revolution, the kinds of doses that we were seeing people using were just minute amounts of herbs, and then we'd look at maybe even the same herb and how it was used in another system, and sometimes they were using amounts 15, 20, 30, 50 times, literally the amounts that North American herbalists were using. Even if we looked at Europe and looked at tincture doses, they often were using doses that were 7 to 10 times higher than those. So my general sense is that somehow people lost confidence in herbal medicine, or we had about 3 generations of people from about 1910 to about 1970 who had no exposure to herbal medicine at all in any kind of a formal way. Of course, there was grandma herbalism, which has always continued, but when the natural healing system crashed in North America, people just didn't have the chance to experiment with these kinds of things. And I think when it came back, people were very hesitant. They were more concerned about how they could be hurt by these things than how they could be benefited. And this idea of these minuscule doses, developed. And I just discovered, along with many other people in my cohort, that as we began to experiment with getting good results, and we just thought, well, maybe if we use a little more, it'd be a little better. And it was, and then a little more and a little more. And most of us found the same thing, really, that if we'd been in practice for 10 years or so, we'd realized that we had to use doses that were not in the herb books yet. So, right, Rosalee, you were right about the requirement to use appropriate doses, and of course that's going to be different for everybody, but generally speaking, we need to use higher doses for most people, and we discovered that really makes a big difference. Now, of course, that means more yucky, bad-tasting tea, or more pills to swallow, or a bunch of more expensive tincture, or whatever it is. So, we have to talk to the individual and find out what's likely to work really well.
There you go, Rosalee.